Homemade Jello is easy to make. It can be prepared in under 10 minutes with just 2 ingredients, gelatin and fruit juice. What is gelatin? It's a protein that's a good source of essential amino acids. It can help to promote healthy hair, skin, nails, joints, and even gut health. Today we're talking about all things Jello. I'm going to show you a couple different ways to make regular Jello with gelatin, and I'll even show you how to make a vegan version of Jello using a sea vegetable called agar. What is agar powder? It's made from red algae, and I like to get the powder rather than the flakes. It's just really easy to work with. This is much more concentrated than gelatin. So instead of using 1 or 2 tablespoons of gelatin to thicken 2 cups of fruit juice, we're going to use only 3/4 of a teaspoon of our agar powder. And the other difference is that this needs to be cooked. The gelatin just blooms and gets stirred into hot water, but the agar needs to be cooked over low heat for a couple of minutes. So this is a very nourishing snack or light dessert. Let me show you how to make it. In a bowl, place 1/2 cup of water or fruit juice. I'm using R.W. Knudsen grape juice. Add 1 tablespoon of gelatin. This process is called blooming the gelatin because we're going to let the gelatin soak into this small amount of liquid, and it opens up, it expands and slightly thickens. So we're going to let this sit for 5 minutes. Place 1.5 cups of your juice into a saucepan and warm it up over medium-high heat until it's nice and hot. After 5 minutes, you'll see that your gelatin has thickened up and it becomes like a nice little slurry. Into the heated juice, we're going to pour the 1/2 cup of juice that had the gelatin in it. Just stir them together. Now pour the hot liquid into a shallow container. I like to use either glass or stainless steel. I'm going to let this cool at room temperature until the container is no longer hot to the touch. At that point, I'll cover it and place it in the refrigerator to cool the rest of the way. Now let's talk about Jello consistency. If you like your Jello on the softer side, or it's just like firm enough, but it's still got a little creaminess to it, you need to eat it in a bowl, you can't pick it up with your hands like a nice firm square of Jello, then you'll want to use the 1 tablespoon of gelatin like I did for the grape Jello. However, if you do want that more firm texture where you can stack up little squares of Jello, then you're going to want to use 2 tablespoons of gelatin for every 2 cups of liquid. To show you what I'm talking about, I'm going to make some apple juice Jello. So I've got some pure apple juice here. I've got 1.5 cups measured out that I'm going to heat in a pan. But this time I'm going to measure out 2 tablespoons, and I'm going to bloom the gelatin again in water. Basically meaning that I'm mixing the 2 tablespoons of gelatin with 1/2 cup of water, stirring it around and letting it sit for 5 minutes. You can see already that this is thickening up where it's almost the consistency of applesauce. We're going to let that sit for 5 more minutes. Meanwhile, while we're waiting for the gelatin to bloom, just like we did with our grape Jello, we're going to pour our apple juice into a saucepan and warm it till it gets nice and hot. I got our juice nice and hot, so now it's time to stir in the bloomed gelatin. And again, this will be much thicker than the other one was. I mean, look at this. It really is like chunky applesauce. This is so fun for kids, by the way. It's almost like a science experiment just to thicken liquids and then see them firm up into Jello, and using different colors. It can be really a fun thing to do with your family. Pour it into a shallow dish. And now I'm going to let this cool at room temperature for a little bit and then pop it in the refrigerator to cool the rest of the way. So now let's make our vegan Jello. I'm pouring 2 cups of mango juice into a saucepan. I'm going to add 3/4 of a teaspoon of agar powder. And then I'm going to warm that over medium heat, whisking to avoid any lumps, until it starts to thicken. Now you might even be wondering how to add fruit to Jello. Totally easy. I'm going to show you that as well. So after my Jello set in the refrigerator for about 40 minutes, I pressed a little bit of fruit on top. I'm using canned mandarin oranges and some sliced grapes. You can use whatever fruit you like. If you'd rather have the fruit mixed in throughout the Jello, just add it sooner. So instead of waiting 40 minutes after refrigerating the Jello, you could check after 15 minutes and stir in the fruit at that point. You don't have to stick with just fruit juice. You can also use coconut milk to make Jello. I'm just going to make a mini batch of coconut milk Jello to make a pretty topping for some of the other Jello with fruit juice. You can see that the coconut milk is a lot of fat, but it will soften up when we heat it up. And it's not sweet, so if you do want it sweet, you can just add a little bit of sugar. And this is 1/2 cup of coconut milk. So again, just to keep the simple ratio on the gelatin, you're using anywhere between 1 tablespoon and 2 tablespoons for every 2 cups of liquid. If you want your gelatin less firm, you're going to use 1 tablespoon. If you want it nice and firm, use 2 tablespoons. Or somewhere in between, you can use 1.5 tablespoons, but that's just the general range and ratio. Now I'm adding my gelatin. For 1/2 cup of coconut milk heated, I'm adding 1/2 tablespoon of gelatin that's been soaked in 1/4 cup of water. Making sure our Jello's ready. Since these have been in the refrigerator and they're very cold glasses, I don't want to break the glass by pouring really hot liquid in there. So we're letting this cool down a bit before adding it to the glasses. Now before I go ahead and pour the coconut on the second mango Jello, I want to test the consistency since this is the vegetarian Jello we made with the agar powder. Let's see if it came out as nicely as the gelatin Jello. I'm just going to give it a little press and it's beautiful. It's perfect. So this really is a nice alternative for any of you who want to make a vegetarian version of Jello. And then just refrigerate your Jello again until the topping has firmed up. Let's take a look at our different Jellos and see how they turned out so far. So depending how much gelatin you add, you're going to have different consistencies of your Jello. This is the one with a little less gelatin added, still firm to the touch, but you can tell it's a little bit softer. It's going to be a little creamier. This came out really nice with the fruit pressed in. And this is the Jello that had the most gelatin added. This had 2 tablespoons of gelatin added for the 2 cups of juice. This one is quite firm. I can tell that if I cut it, I'm going to be able to pick up a little piece and I'll show you. Here we go. We did it. There's the classic Jello jiggle. Finger friendly. You can easily hold a little square of this, no problem, no mess. And you can feel so good about giving this to your kids or eating it yourself. It's just fruit juice, basically. Fruit juice and the gelatin. Makes you feel like a kid again. So good. Such a clean, healthy dessert. Light, refreshing. It's hard to believe it actually gives you a little bit of protein. This is a great snack because you get a little bit of the naturally occurring sugar from the fruit juice, a little protein from the gelatin. It's very balanced, refreshing. I'm eating the whole thing. I obviously love Jello. I hope you enjoyed learning how to make your own homemade Jello. Let me know in the comments if you plan to try it. Thanks for watching and see you the next time.